Jimmy D and the Wolf Podcast. What is this number? I think it's number 18, buddy.
Number 18.
18.
Man, how long have we been on lockdown? Well, like 8 weeks or something?
Well, it's been a little while. So you can see my musty studio behind. Arg. It's a working man's
fairly clean for a studio.
It's a working man's studio.
Yeah, by studio comparisons, by studio standards.
See, how can I turn to cover up?
Not half bad. Yeah, man. You know, today was the day Little Richard passed. Been kind of bummed about that. That guy was the first blues music that I really heard when I was a little kid. Little Richard albums, because my dad had lots of vinyl, and most of it was country stuff and Elvis and stuff like that. But Little Richard, I didn't know what the blues was like that. I knew that it was something different. And he was so raw and raspy and real that I don't know how he did it, but somehow he took that old kind of rawness from the old school blues guys and brought it into something that was widely acceptable by the masses. It was huge what he did. And not just, but thinking about the character that he was in the 50s being so flamboyant. I mean, before James Brown or Prince or Michael Jackson, any of those guys back in the day, it was Little Richard. And could you imagine what all he went through being that guy?
I can imagine. Was he gay? Was he gay?
I honestly don't know, man. To be honest, I just always kind of assumed.
I mean, I just thought of it right at this moment. I'd never thought of it before, but I mean, kind of like, Liberace and,
Right.
He was kind of dressed flamboyantly, had to it's kind of a black Liberace. Or Liberace was a white Little Richard, more likely.
Right.
Because Little Richard came first, right? I think he did.
I think so, man. Well, what a groundbreaking artist, though, man.
Mm-hmm.
And not just his music.
Well, what were some of his hits? I mean, he had Tutti Frutti, right? Tutti
Frutti, Lucille, Rip It Up. The Girl Can't Help It. It had some cool stuff, man. I mean, they were all essentially blues songs or boogie songs. But
was he from New Orleans? Where was he from?
Georgia, I think. Or Atlanta. He's definitely down south. Macon, Georgia. Yes, sir.
Yeah, Macon, Georgia. You are right. Little Richard's Macon, Georgia, aged 87. Man, he played with a lot of labels. RCA Victor, Peacock, Warner Brothers, Tutti Frutti, 1955, signature hit. Long Tall Sally went to number 1. In 62, he abandoned rock and roll became a born-again Christian. And the Beatles opened for him on some tour dates.
Well, Paul, I think Paul was trying to do his best Little Richard impersonation on some of the Beatles stuff. The whole, you know what I'm saying? Some of those tunes where he was really going for it with the screams. I think Paul was trying to mimic Little Richard. Yeah, with the high pitch, the woo!
Oh, yeah. I got you. I got what you're saying. I'm hip to your jive.
Yeah. He did it with all that raspiness in there. And there's just a lot of power in that guy's voice. But I was thinking about it all day, man. It's like he influenced all those cats, James Brown, all of them. And he did it in a way, man, where he transcended the old school blues, the roots of it all. Somehow he retained the integrity of it and brought it to a brand new audience. And that's not easy to do. Like we talk a lot about some of the newer age blues guys and how it's very flashy and kind of veers off in different directions. I think he did a great job of keeping it real.
According to Wikipedia, he's cited as one of the first crossover black artists reaching audiences of all races. Well, he did it before Chuck Berry, or maybe Chuck Berry about the same time. 55, Berry was doing it in the late 50s, so he and Chuck Berry were kind of pioneers in that way, I guess.
Absolutely.
His contemporaries, including Elvis Presley, Buddy Holly, Bill Haley, Jerry Lee Lewis, the Everly Brothers, Gene Vincent, and Eddie Cochran, all recorded covers of his works. All of these guys recording covers. These are giants. Oh, man,
Absolutely.
Presley told him in 69 that his music was an inspiration to him, that he was the greatest. And it also talks about he taught Paul McCartney his distinctive vocalizations. Wow, you're right. Yeah. I don't know. Did you just pick that up on your own? But yeah, it talks about that.
Yeah, I just picked it up from listening to the early stuff, man, because I could tell Paul was trying to cop Little Richard.
Well, there's some evidence to that. Wikipedia supports that. You have such an ear, a golden ear, Jimmy D.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, that's before I started doing everything streaming. I don't even know if I have any Little Richard CDs. I never was that much into him as I probably should have.
I was just exposed to it real younger. I don't know if I ever would have gotten into
because
it.
Because guitar was my thing. It's only recently that I've gotten really excited about piano, even though I'm a self-taught, just boring, rudimentary piano player. But piano players intrigue me. But early in my career, I was all about the guitar. Or early in my life, I was all about the guitar. So yeah, he was they're dying off, all these early pioneers. He was one of the last ones.
Yeah, and it poses the question, like, is there anybody there now that really has staying power that's going to be legendary in 50 years? Like, what new artists have that? Nobody really jumps out at me that's come out recently that I say, yeah, my grandkids are going to listen to this.
Well, he wrote his own stuff. Today, how many artists? It's a team, and maybe there's 9, what was it last year? The average number of writers on a song in the Billboard Hot 100, Top 10, or I think it was Hot 25, Top 25. The average number of songwriters for the year, the 25 songs, I think it was 2019, the average number of writers on the top 25 songs in the Hot 100 was 9.5 writers.
Really?
Yeah. Now that's in the Hot 100. That's all genres combined together, but it's mainly urban.
That's a lot of writers.
It's a lot of writers, but there were some that had like 18 that really skewed that number because an average is an average. The total number of writers divided by the number of songs, so that really raised that number. So the median number would have been lower. The median is where 50% is higher and 50% is lower. Oftentimes, median is a better measure of the middle of the road is where you're trying to determine, because the average will be skewed by some big, like, if you have 10 people in the room and everybody's earning 50,000 and one person is Warren Buffett, the average income of that room is going to be much higher than if Warren Buffett wasn't there. So the median is a much better measurement because it takes, 5 above and 5 below and what that number is. Anyway, 9.5. So the point being is, in this era, there's rare to find an artist who writes his own stuff and does it primarily on his own or her own.
Sure.
It's a team. And maybe it's a team that wrote it, and since you got so many names on there and the artist is wanting a piece of it, so maybe the artist was in the room and said, and I don't know much about Ariana Grande's writing. So she says, I want to write a song, 7 Rings, because I went to Tiffany's and I bought rings for all my girlfriends. Okay, that's going to be the subject of the song. Of course, she used my favorite thing. She used the Rodgers and Hammerstein melody, and but there were a bunch of other people on there, and so maybe her contribution was come up, but this is the topic I want to write about. I'm not hating on Ariana Grande. I love her stuff. She's got great music. She's got some staying power, but I don't know that she's known for writing. Her name might be on the writing, and she came up with the idea, but did she really craft that song? She certainly didn't craft the melody, because that was my favorite things, from 50, 70 years ago. So I'm trying to think of like Bruce Springsteen. Today I put on Anyone Can Learn Guitar, our website, Today in Music. In 74, Bonnie Raitt opened, I think it was 74. Bruce Springsteen opened up for Bonnie Raitt. And Rolling Stone reporter was there and said, I have now seen the future of rock and roll. And he was right. Bruce Springsteen opening up for Bonnie Raitt, that was where it was. And Bruce, I don't know if he's ever co-written. Doesn't he write everything by himself?
I believe he does.
So that's...
Well, a lot of that's gone away.
Yeah, that's the point I'm getting at. Thank you.
The Swiss Army knife artists.
Yeah. Are there any current artists who basically write their own stuff who are that big? John Mayer, I don't know that he has many co-writers, but he definitely has the chops to write by himself.
Oh,
he doesn't need a help. He doesn't need a room and 8 other writers in the room with him.
Sure. What would that even look like, man? Writing in a room with 8 other people?
Well, I don't know if they're all in the room together. I don't know how it works, but that's kind of the LA thing, to be the LA thing. And maybe you got somebody who, a lot of their writing is top line. So somebody comes up with a beat, and then the top liners come in, and the beat with the chords and the synth chords and electronic is already done, and somebody comes in and top lines over the top. Why are you smiling?
Yeah.
So, top lining, that's the way a lot of current music is done. Somebody comes up with a cool beat. In fact, it's assumed. I see articles on Instagram. I've gotten hit ups or call ups from guys trying to sell me beats saying, "Hey, I see you're a writer, or you need some beats. You come to my website." You go to a website. Well, that's what Lil Nas X did. He went to a website and bought a beat for $25 from a guy in a Dutch guy in the Netherlands. And it blew up and became Old Town Road. So you can go to their website and you can scroll down and sample the beats and which one do you want. And
remember you telling me about the guy, I think maybe it was Funnel Hacking Live, the guy that was selling beats?
Yeah. I forgot about it.
The reason I smiled is because we've written songs every which way imaginable except for starting with a beat. So now we got to write a song starting with a beat. It would be fun. I've never done it that way.
I've got the beat. We can write a song to the beat that we've been using for our podcast. There's no lyrics to that.
Yeah, we should do exercises with that, writing the beats.
Yeah, okay. We can do that.
Good evening, Cleveland.
Well, we got 3 different things going on. Anyone can learn guitar, my artist stuff.
3.
And I'm trying to do videos and all that for all of them. So,
yeah, we have plenty going on, buddy. I think it's more than 3.
Yeah, so listen to the theme song when you first started watching this podcast. That we should write a song to. That's a beat.
We will. You have my word. We'll have a song with that beat on it soon.
All right.
I'll start tinkering with it.
Okay.
We'll have to get that in the woodshed.
Yeah. So I don't know how that is all done. I don't. The average isn't that many. Or the median isn't that many. The average is, but not the median. I'd say maybe 5 to 6 would be the norm. And it's because maybe the main part is written by 2 or 3, and then people come in and add a bridge or add something to like Phineas. Okay, Phineas. Phineas won Producer of the Year. He's Billie Eilish's brother, and the 2 of them just cleaned up at the Grammys, and he's her producer and co-writer. And he also won the Grammy for Producer of the Year. And of course, now he's a big name producer. He does stuff for more than just his sister, and he's also an artist in his own right. Writes stuff by himself. I've heard him sing. He's got a great voice. And he's killing it on every level. And he's in his early 20s, so he's got a long career ahead of him. Anyway, there was a video I was watching about him, and I think it was a Selena Gomez track, or Selena Gomez, or it might have been Ariana Grande, but was sent to him, and he was asked to add some sparkle, and he said,
juice on it.
Yeah, put something on it, and he put some. He says, I put this on it and I put that on it. It was some counterpoint, or I don't remember exactly, but he said high harmonies or whatever it would be. And did he get co-writing credit for that? So there's an example where you add to a co-writer by saying, okay, this track is almost finished, but to take it from good to great, or take it from great to out of the world incredible, we need to have some more sparkle, some more fairy dust on it. So let's send it to a top-notch producer. Okay, let's send it to Phineas, see what he can do. We already think it's a great song, but we want to add some magic dust and get somebody to do that. And does he get co-writing credit? I don't know. I would say maybe he does.
Yeah, I think on that level.
Yeah.
I think guys on his level probably do.
Yeah.
It's the old saying, a word for a third. You add 1 word to the song and you get a third of the money. The biggest thing I've noticed about him, man, you know, is it seems like, and a lot of the newer music, it seems like production now, the biggest change from even 10 years ago, or really 5 years ago, is it seems like there's something new introduced each verse. They'll add a new instrument or double something.
Yes, or even sooner than each verse. I mean,
Yeah.
every four. What we said, every 4 bars, or every. I mean, a short number of bars, 2 bars, 4 bars, depending on how fast the song is.
Yeah, and you're constantly being introduced with different sonic landscapes, and they're introducing, they're taking away, and they're introducing, they're taking away, and there's so much going on. By like the third chorus, and they do the third chorus, and it's just the voice and the bass, and it's amazing how production has changed, because the stuff that I came up on, you know, we love a lot of the same kind of music. The stuff that I came up on was a dude playing the guitar, a dude playing the piano, and singing the whole song. We didn't hear music that way.
Yeah.
There wasn't constantly a new instrument coming in and going away and coming in and going away. But pop music is definitely doing that now. And so's country. It's just fascinating to me. It makes me wonder if it's not going to swing back hard the other direction, because it's so cyclical.
Talk about country. Country now is top lining too. Young songwriters now are, some of them are beat makers, and even in country, and do, you know, make a beat and then write a country song over it. So it's invading even the country space. It's interesting.
Just when we thought it couldn't get any worse. I'm kidding, kind of.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm fascinated with how did Phineas arrive at where he's at. I mean, by all accounts, they live in a small house, and I wonder how long they're going to continue to do that now that they're making, you know, millions and millions. And live in a small house, crammed in, and I've seen videos of Phineas's bedroom, and he recorded all of Billy's vocals. I mean, it's all crammed in together. My space is probably 3 times, 4 times the size of Phineas's bedroom. Maybe I need that so I wouldn't be so messy. Stuff everywhere, and he's got stuff packed in, you know, really close, you know, like a control panel of a jet airplane or something, and everything's really close. And then the bed is right here, and Billie Eilish sits on the bed and does her vocals, and it's all tight and compact. And she even said that she's tried going to studios. I think she's getting out of it. She deals with a lot of anxiety. You can see that in her album. And also collaboration. She said, I can't collaborate with anyone. I get anxiety attacks. I can only work with my brother. And maybe that'll change now. But they do things differently. Like it's the common thing in Nashville. Oh, you got to write 40 songs and pick the best 10 or 12 for your album. And in one of the interviews I saw, and I think I said this earlier, they were asked how many songs they wrote for that album, which that interview was long before they won all those Grammys. And for that album, they won, I think, 6 or 7 Grammys total, and then some of them share. And they said, well, there's 13 songs in the album. We wrote 13 songs. So.
And that was the old way, too, man. I mean, that was the way to do it for years and years and years. That has only changed recently.
Okay, Jimmy, as a songwriter, I saw a post on Jewel, said that she, you know, she came up, was big, and then had that one album. And what I heard was she had this diary of all her, you know, journal of all her innermost feelings. And a songwriter, an accomplished songwriter, got with her and crafted the songs for that album from her journal. And according to this one narrative, no Jewel haters, comparative, please. And really, she didn't have the songwriting craft. She just had the raw material. And then she had the big hit, and there was no follow-up because there was no staying power. But I'm pretty sure that I saw a post the other day, you know, I'm sure she's still trying to resurrect her career or whatever, where she says, I just wrote 100 songs, and I only have 12 that I like. So I'm going to move forward with my album. And I'm going, if I write a song, I'm not done with it until, well, okay, there's some songs that I'm not most proud of,
Yeah.
But most of them,
you're not done with it until you like it.
What's that? Yeah, work on it until I like it. Yeah.
Right.
How about you?
Yeah.
I mean, okay, the numbers are like 12%. What percent of your songs do you like? Let me ask it that way.
All of them.
Well, I wouldn't say, okay, I'm not quite 100. I wouldn't say quite 100 because I've written a few that I'm not that proud of.
Me too, and we all have, but some of that's growth.
But it's definitely way more greater than 12%. I would say I'm very proud and excited about at least 80% of the songs that I've written.
I think every writer's different, man. You know, there's some, I know guys that will spend months on end on just one song. And then there's guys that just produce, you know, will write a song every day. And then there's guys like me that only can really write a song when they feel kind of inspired about it. So I think every individual has a different schematic with that. I've heard that Willie Nelson writes an unbelievable amount of songs and sorts through them to find the ones that he likes the best.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. I know Willie writes a ton of songs. And then there's other cats that, you know, they'll hone in on one for 6 months or even a year until they get it right where they want it.
Yeah, that's interesting because when I first came to Nashville, I was trying to educate myself, and maybe, you know, I've kind of gotten away from that because I'm just so busy. But I went to a lot of classes. I went to NSAI, Nashville Songwriters Association, every Thursday night. I went to a lot of events, Global Songwriting, Songtown, lots of different organizations. And I heard, and then, Vanderbilt. I went to Vanderbilt class 2 semesters, and they had different artists come in and talk. And some of the programs in Nashville, I remember being amazed of, I heard this from a couple of them saying, they were asked how many songs do they write. Well, they have a 3-hour writing session. I mean, a pro writer in Nashville, if they're having a full docket, they'll have 2 sessions a day, 5 days a week.
Yeah.
That's 10 sessions. And each session is 3 hours long, typically. So you can start at 9 or 10 in the morning, go through, and then go till 1, have an hour break, and have another one at 2. So 2 to 5. So 10 to 1, 2 to 5, 5 days a week. And I've heard multiple ones say, you know, we finish a song in that 3-hour set. And do you ever go back? I remember specifically asking, because it just was so surprising to me, do you ever go back and rewrite? No, the song is done when we're done. So there's no rewriting, no revisiting. And then on the other side, Steve Seskin, who I attended his workshop. He's kind of known as a songwriting training guru. Are you familiar with Steve Seskin? I've talked about him before. And he's all about the rewrite. I mean, he labors and labors and labors. I mean, he's a well-known, well-respected songwriting instructor. And
yeah,
he can make you cry. I mean, he writes songs that just make you cry in 30 seconds. I mean, they're so deep, and
so he spends a lot of time refining them.
Well,
that's the thing, man. I mean, every individual is different. It's much like painters, you know, same kind of thing. Some painters can produce 12 a year, and some produce 1 every 12 years, but it's a masterpiece.
Good analogy. Yeah, good analogy.
You know? And I mean, there's just as much power in one as there is in the other. It's just all up to the individual. But I couldn't imagine being in a scenario where you were with a large group of people and expected to pump out a song every 3 hours, plus being in a room with 8 other people. I mean, at that point, you're not putting out quality.
Well, there's certain there's certain standards that I've come to understand, and you know, you go and you learn about the way things are done. I mean, in Nashville, the standard is if you're in the room, you get an equal share. You know, nobody goes and fights over who contributed what. If you're in the room, you get an equal share. And so if there are 3 people, it's third, third, a third, and so on. But I think most Nashville rights are no more than 3 people, 2 to 3, typical. And you're in the room together, and you craft the song. Versus, I think there's this other way. There's a serial way of doing it where somebody comes up with the beat and you do the top line. You know, there's that way of doing it. Or like Bernie Taupin and Elton John did, where Bernie would write the lyrics and send them to Elton John, and they could be living on other opposite ends of the world, and as long as you got connection and send the lyrics on I don't know, you know, we're never in the same room together, based on my understanding, and they wrote all those great hits. And then Elton John would craft the melody and the chords. So different ways of doing it.
Fun fact: Bernie has a daughter named Indiana.
Yeah, we were talking about that the other day. That's got you going. You like that?
That's great.
Yeah. He was fascinated by. In the early 70s, he was just fascinated, and I think he lives in the U.S., fascinated with American culture, and so he wanted to write about America. He came here and explored and tried to understand our unique culture.
They gave us some gems, man, that's for sure.
Oh, no doubt about it. I'm a huge Elton John and their song, Taupin Elton John fan of what they've done. So, you know, I mean, are there any players like that? But it's a different world now. So it's all about the beat. It's all about I wonder Louis Capaldi, who writes his stuff. He's kind of a throwback kind of an artist.
He does.
Does he write his own?
I think he does. It feels like he does.
He's a Scottish star. With an old soul voice.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
I love his stuff.
Me too, big time. You know, so.
Yeah, well, that's a great thing, man. It's like all these platforms that say, you know, all these platforms that teach songwriting, they vary so wildly. And the craziest thing about songwriting is they're all right because there really are no absolute rules. All those things work. It's like, is it right to write 3 songs a day, or is it right to write 3 great songs a year? Well, they're both right. It's all right. You know what I mean? It's a crazy thing.
Could you imagine?
Once you think you find an absolute, you find something to contradict.
Yeah, okay. You get signed. Let's say, I mean, a lot of writers, the standard and there's still a ton of writers. Their goal is my friend Mark. Who used to hang out and used to go to writer open mic nights and writers rounds. His goal is to become a staff songwriter. And there are a number of other people that I met in Songtown, etc. And whereas the standard contract, as I understand it, is you get a draw of $20,000 a year, and you need to recoup that, and the publishers recoup that as a publishing deal, and it's $20,000 a year. Now maybe that's changed, but it's really hard to live on $20,000. You almost have to have other sources of income. How do you survive in Nashville on $20,000 a year? But anyhow, and then they try to recoup that, and when it gets to be 6 figures, one publisher said that's when it gets really bad. I think they start cutting you off long before you get there now. So if you go 5 years and you've never written a hit, you know, then they'd say, yeah, we're probably going to cut you loose. But you never owe that money back. You know, that's a draw, but you're supposed to write something that recoups that.
Yeah.
And the minimum on a contract is 12 songs. 100% share of 12 songs. So if you're co-writing with one other person, you need to write 24 and so on, or 3 people. So 12 complete shares is the minimum to keep your pub deal. Now, practically speaking, that isn't near enough. If that's all you're supposed to be doing is a full-time songwriter, you better be writing more than, I feel, better than 12 complete shares. I mean, you're not an artist. You're not trying to build a fan base online and social media. So that's why they do, typically they do 2 a day, and some of them were even doing 3 a day. Could you imagine 3-hour song in the evening? I think Rick Beersford told me my song coach, when he started, or was it someone else told me that's how they started? They wanted to get ahead, so they were doing 3 writes a day, 3-hour writes a day, times 5 days a week. How do you have any ideas? I mean, everything you've had has been sucked up into. Where do you find anything new?
I think they probably just kind of hit autopilot at a certain point. It's one of those things like the more you do it, maybe.
Maybe, yeah.
I've never done it that way. I have had some like industrial strength writing sessions where you just go and go and go and go and go because you have to go somewhere else and the person has to go somewhere else. So you write for like 14, 16, even 18 hours. I've done that before and been productive. But that's like a one-off. I couldn't imagine doing that every single day. That would probably be
I know, like we talked maybe in a previous podcast about the bus riding thing. The bus, I know Chris Wallen talked about getting on a bus and a bus ride and going on a bus road, and then all your distractions are muted, and you got the scenery to kind of stimulate you maybe out the window, and you're right all day long. Stop to eat and to sleep. You're cooped up. And also writing camps. Go away to writing camps. That's a big thing. West Coast, they do a lot of that. Go to a writing camp and put everybody together. And even artists will sometimes do that. I saw a video of Ed Sheeran did that. He had Benny Blanco there, and they're all at a location, and they're all trying to write songs, not specifically for Ed Sheeran, right? Now, Ed Sheeran's another one who's a great writer, and he works with other people. I mean, I think he's got staying power. I think he's one of the modern ones who could, I think he's got depth of writing. I really do.
Yeah. Anybody that can sell out Bridgestone Arena and do the whole show all by themselves has staying power.
Bridgestone Arena? Not the arena. He did the stadium. He's on stadium. He did the frickin' stadium all by himself. Stadium tour. He's way past the arena stage. He's in the stadium level. And the only person on stage is himself, his guitar, and his
Unreal,
looper.
Man.
And his looper.
Unreal. And if you watch what he's doing, he's dancing on those loop pedals.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is.
It's incredible.
He's super talented. And that's not even the songwriting. That's a whole other skill set, using that looper.
Yeah. Well, they're still out there. I think to come back around and answer our question, those guys are still out there.
Yeah.
Those triple threat guys. And there's more great music out there now than there ever has been before. It's just you got to go through a sea. You got to go through a sea of information to get to it.
Yeah, because there's no gatekeepers that control. Okay, this is the style of music that's going to be popular now, which is like what the A&R guys used to do. Say we're only going to they rejected so many artists that could never do it. And if you didn't have a record deal, there's no way you were ever going to, because you couldn't pay for the recording time, and you would and there was no streaming. How nobody's going to find you? You're going to sell it out of your trunk of your car to the time.
That's the beauty of it now, man, is there's multiple ways to make it. There's I don't remember ever hearing Govt Mule on the radio, and there's lots of artists like that, bands like that, acts like that are getting huge. Blackberry Smoke is huge. They don't play them on the radio. And there's lots of rappers that make it through streaming platforms. I mean, it's coming at you from all angles, which is good for the artists now. Oh,
I mean, I think we've said before. I mean, this is the greatest time. Sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
It's bad for the consumer in a way, though, because if you are an artist trying to interject yourself into new consumers' ear, it's hard to get their attention.
Yeah, I think there's a barrier. We talked about this morning. I believe that we put up barriers because we're inundated with so much information, and I found that as I'll just reiterate what I told you this morning on the phone. I'm on this YouTube. Shout out to Sonny Luarduzzi, YouTube for Bosses. I'm in this program, and it's got a Facebook group, and you post your videos there. and everybody likes and comments on them. And I've noticed that when I post a music video, it gets half the amount of views versus just a video of me talking. And I think that's because people, and I've noticed other examples of that. I think that's because people have a barrier about onboarding new music. It takes emotional energy, and there's more barriers up than just watching, say, a podcast or somebody doing skits or any other form of content that you would have, because there's so much out there. So to go from a cold audience and get them to move to a warm audience takes a tremendous amount of energy, because for an artist to become discovered, you put your stuff on Spotify or any other streaming platform, and it's just going to sit there. Nobody's going to find it.
Well, how spoiled are we as Americans to be like, I don't have time to be entertained by anything new. I'm really entertained by all these things I already have.
Well, that's what it is. I mean,
I know,
to onboard that, I mean, it's just, I want to think, we've talked about this a bit, and I'm really interested in this, what is it about us that as human beings, we have a resistance to allowing new music. And I've seen it in myself. I mean, I have to, my first is no, I won't listen to that. I've got to say, no, why not? I'm going to do that. So does that make sense? I wonder if our listeners, do you guys?
It's old as the hills, man. People don't know what they like. They like what they know. People don't.
So familiarity is always better than an unknown.
Sure.
Even if it's mediocre, you would rather have familiar or mediocre.
Well, there's a lot of that too, man, that you just accept it eventually. When you hear something, you're like, this is garbage. I hate it.
Yeah. How many hits in the past have been made hits just because of payola or whatever it is, the promotion, over and over and over and over and over. And eventually it became a hit because it was getting played and people got familiar with it. There's a lot of songs like that that are just so saccharine.
Well, once it's accepted by a certain group of people, it's accepted. It's funny. It's almost like the Spotify playlist. I'll be going along or not Spotify, but Pandora. I'll be going along on Pandora and listening to something and go like an hour and a half of listening to like the Stone station, and they'll just lay an egg out of nowhere where I'm like, what in the world does this have to do with everything I've been listening to today? You know what I mean?
Oh, really? Okay. Something that doesn't belong on the list.
Yeah, it happens, man. It's not a daily thing, but it does happen. Every once in a while, I'll just be like, where'd that come from? I wasn't expecting that.
Okay, here's an illustration. I saw a headline that the Stones released a new single recently, within the last week or so.
Good.
I'm a huge Stones fan.
Yeah, me too.
Have I heard that single yet? No.
Right.
I want to listen to the stuff I know from the Stones. Case in point right there. Are you interested in trying to search out that new single from the Stones?
Probably not going to happen anytime soon.
Yeah, same thing. See? There it is right there.
It'll probably take me a while to get back around to listening to my favorite Stones albums that I've heard 10 million times. That's what I'm saying, man. We're so spoiled that we really are.
So for a new artist trying to break out and try to get that audience to go from cold to warm.
That's the rub, man.
That's
new music. Everybody wants new music, but for the first time in history, classic rock albums are selling as much as new albums are selling. So which is it? Everybody wants new music, which we don't want to hear new music. It's the great conundrum of the music business right now that keeps it from having much staying power for the new stuff. It's brain bending.
Well, according to my time, we've been going for a while.
Yeah, man. I think we're good.
But I got one thing I want to talk about, and this may torque off some people.
Okay.
And write the letters. I was on social media, Facebook this week, and I came across a page of one of the more popular blues guitar players, Joe Bonamassa. And there are people who say, your friends, some of my friends say, he's the greatest guitar player, maybe even in history, some say, because he plays a lot of notes. But he's just riffing. I mean, I've seen him in concert, but he's just riffing on the blues, minor pentatonic blues scale. I mean, he's not really playing over the changes. I don't believe. Doesn't sound like he is, which is a more advanced jazz player. Is he playing over the changes? He's just playing on the blues scale primarily.
Playing a lot of stuff, man. He plays a lot of notes and a lot of the Eric Johnson bag.
To my ear, he's playing the same scale, just really fast.
Yeah, right.
Eric Johnson is at another level. Eric Johnson's playing all kinds of exotic scales, I feel.
Yeah, I think there's guys that are as proficient as Bonamassa.
Anyway, where he fits in the pantheon of guitar players, that isn't for another argument or another discussion. The point I wanted to make is it says right on his Facebook page, and I checked to see if this is a fan's page, but apparently it's his own page. And it says right on his Facebook page, one of the greatest guitar players in the world. And I'm like, really? You're calling yourself? I mean, you can think that. But all I know is none of my heroes, Hendrix, Clapton, Santana, Stevie Ray Vaughan, would ever have Robin Ford. All these greats, they're very, B.B. King, they would never have called themselves, ever. Sure. They always were very self-deprecating. Jimi Hendrix, there's many interviews of him saying, oh, there's better guitar players than me. And that just kind of sticks in my craw a bit. I mean, maybe it's the time we're in, self-aggrandizing promotion on your, they didn't have social media back then, but if they had, they never would have put that on there based on what I know of them.
It hits me the same way, Tim. I understand.
I mean, I'm pretty much done listening to Joe Bonamassa if that's the way you're touting yourself. Now, is somebody on his staff doing that? But still, the buck always stops with the guy on the top,
right,
the artist.
If it was Derek Trucks, I guarantee you Derek Trucks would be like, who in the hell put on my Facebook page that says that I'm one of the greatest guitar players?
Get that down and you're fired.
Yeah,
probably.
What are you doing, man? What or Warren Haynes? Warren would be like, dude, who put on the Facebook page that says I'm one of the greatest guitar players in the world?
Yes.
Even though those guys absolutely are.
They're at that level. They're at this. They don't have to. They're not in the shade by Bonamassa. Yeah. Bonamassa does not put those two guys in the shade.
Nobody will. They're at the top tier, for sure. But I get what you're saying. No matter how good you are, it's still.
Yeah.
There's always somebody that can do something you don't know.
Absolutely. All right. Well,
those little kids in Russia playing stuff that mind-boggling, dude. Playing 3 or 4 guitar parts at the same time.
Yeah. The level of the guitar playing is so high. Never been so high. Some phenomenal chops out there. All right. Well, I think we're an hour. Already an hour in, at least from when we started.
Right on, man.
All right.
Onward. Jimmy D and the Wolf.
Jimmy D and the Wolf. See you next time.